Hey everyone, welcome to my initial walkthrough on ZimmWriter. If you're brand new to ZimmWriter or you're wondering how I use it, this will be where to start, and I'll kind of walk you through each step and show you what I do. For those of you that are wondering, I am on a Mac, but you'll see I'm running a Windows desktop here, and I'm going to do a separate video to show you how I do this. But I do this by running a remote Windows desktop, and I highly recommend this for a couple of different reasons. But most importantly for me is ZimmWriter gives you the ability to create bulk content, and with a remote Windows desktop, I can go ahead and get things wound up and running, and then I can literally turn my computer off, do anything I want, because everything's running in that remote desktop, which in my case, even though I'm based in the United States, that remote desktop's over in Germany. So if you're on a Mac, or a PC, candidly, it's how I would run it. I absolutely love running ZimmWriter this way. So let's just take a dive in here and kind of go through the menu and show you the overview of where things are at, and we'll go from there. So when you open up ZimmWriter, one thing it's not known for is a flashy interface, and in my mind that's good because it's super easy to use and very, very simple. There's a lot of magic commands and things like that we can talk about, but I'm going to save that for later. What I really want to focus on now is how I use ZimmWriter and how my team uses it in order to create amazing blog content. Because when we're talking about creating topical authority, we're talking about creating content that'll make us the expert in our niche and creating SEO type content. This is where ZimmWriter shines. So let's go ahead and dive in. There's a couple of different ways we can do things. I'm going to start with the SEO writer. And when you click on this, I'll just walk you through each step and you guys can see how things work. So step one is your blog post title. So whatever it is that you want to write a title about here, this is where we'd go ahead and we'd start. And we could give it anything that the AI is going to have information on. In a few minutes, I'm going to talk to you about using deep research and how you can use research to review more current topics. But for right now, we're going to start with the basics, and we're just going to take a look at any title that we might find relevant. You guys know me, I'm into AI, so I'm going to go ahead and focus on that and put that in order. And let's go ahead and write a blog post about the power of using, if I can type here, there we go, using chain of prompt processes with AI. So I could probably come up with a better one, that's fine. Then I can go ahead, if I had a SERPs that I wanted to scrape for that'd be search engine results, by the way, that I could do that. Or I can add my global background in here. So what I'm going to do here is, to make things easy, we're going to go ahead and highlight this title that I want. And I'm going to stick with everything right here in my Windows desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and log into Chrome and go to Perplexity for a minute. I could go to ChatGPT as well. In fact, you guys have seen me do it. Let's go ahead and do it with ChatGPT here, just because we haven't necessarily done it that way. I've done it a lot with Perplexity. So we're logged in. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my search feature through GPT's new search. And I'm just literally going to paste in my title. Oops, that was a code I got, not the title I wanted. Let me go ahead and grab that title. There we go. The power of using prompt processes, chain of prompt processes with AI. And I'm simply going to say, let's see here, go to the beginning here. I want to write an engaging and compelling SEO-optimized blog post with the title of "Please help me create a background research document to be used by my writing team as they create this post." Now I could probably spell a little better, but that's all right. We'll go ahead and see what we get. Here we go. So we're getting an introduction, the importance of chain of prompting, chain of thought. Getting more. We're just going to let this finish up here a minute. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this information and we're going to share this with ZimmWriter. So we're just going to copy that over. And I'm going to go ahead and minimize my window here, and we'll go back into ZimmWriter. And for a global background, I'm just going to paste that in. Super simple. That means that information is going to be used as ZimmWriter writes this article. Now, keep in mind that ZimmWriter is actually not writing the article. ZimmWriter is just the tool. It's going to be using whatever methodology we ask it to do, and I'll show you that in a moment. So based on that, I need to determine how many subheadings that I want. Let's go ahead and let's ask ChatGPT here to get a good idea. So for this post, how many H2s would you recommend? And it's now going to give us those H2s, and we'll use that here in a moment. So we're going to wait. It says 5 to 7. It didn't give them to us. That's all right. So we're going to pick 5 to 7. So let's go down here and we'll put in, I want this to be a little bit longer, so I'm going to put in 7. And now we're going to choose the model that we want. So the AI model here can be a host of different models that we've got to choose from. You can see I've got a lot of them in here. Right now I'm going to actually use GPT-4 to write this because I think that that's going to do well. I want to do 4.0. So here we go, GPT-4.0, and you notice afterwards it says OA. That stands for OpenAI. I can also get on here and you'll see I've got other ones in here that say different things like OR, which stands for Open Router, and ANT, which stands for Anthropic. So there's different ways that I could choose this. So I can choose GPT-4.0 through Open Router, or I can choose it through OpenAI. I'd rather use it through OpenAI because that's where it comes from directly. So ChatGPT 4.0 through OpenAI. It's going to take just a second to update that. And now we have the option of figuring out what our subheadings are going to be. So mind you, I specified we wanted 7 of those. I could go ahead and figure that out, but I'm going to let ChatGPT do that. So I'm literally just going to say generate H2 using only AI. When I click on this, it's going to take about 30 seconds, and it's going to go ahead and fill in, based upon the background information I've provided so far and based on the title, what it believes the H2s for this blog post should be. So we're going to go ahead and wait just a moment here while this finishes up. It takes about 10 to 30 seconds to go ahead and populate these, depending on a number of factors. And there we can see we've got it. So now I can scroll down, and what's it recommending? So it's recommending we put titles of Understanding Chain of Prompts, the benefits of sequential prompting, enhanced AI precision, real-world applications, overcoming challenges, best practices, and future opportunities. I think that's a great way to get started, and that sounds like an article that'll make a lot of sense. So I can go ahead and do that. Now, if I wanted to, I could fill that in. I could add H3s and do all of that if I want to, but let's keep this simple for this first walkthrough. Next is configuring my options. So how long do I want each H2 to be? I can choose tiny, it's going to be a sentence or two, short, a little bit longer, medium, a bit longer, or long, which may be a couple paragraphs per section, or maybe even a few paragraphs per section. For my purposes here, I'm probably going to want something that's at least 1,500 words, and I'm going to go with medium because I don't want it to get to be too wordy, but you could go either or. Then we have some options here. So enable literary devices. So one of the things we always want to do is we want to try to make AI sound as much like us as possible. And so by enable literary devices, it's going to help in that. I also want to enable lists. That's going to give me a 40% chance, as you can see if you hover over here, of having bulleted lists and or numeric lists added, and that always helps with readability. I'm also going to enable tables because my blog is on WordPress, and that'll support putting tables in, and of course that's always beneficial. I'm going to have it nuke AI words, and I'll show you in another video how we set up those words, and that's basically instructing the model, in this case ChatGPT 4.0 that we're using, to make sure that it's not using certain words. Now, it's not 100% accurate, but it'll greatly minimize some of those words. I also am a big fan of bold to help readability. If you've ever done any research, you probably realize that when people read blogs online, they're actually skimming more than reading every word in most cases. And what will happen here is it'll use AI to go ahead and reread the article at the conclusion and bold sections that it thinks will help with readability. That draws the reader's eye into that section, and in my mind does definitely help with that. So we're going to do all of those. Then for intro, I have two different options. In other words, as it begins this, is it going to do just a standardized intro, which is great, or is it going to do what's called the search intent intro? Now, because I want this to rank well, I'm going to do a search intent intro, and what that's going to do is literally they're going to go out and have AI analyze, based upon the title and the topic of this blog post, what keywords people might be searching for in Google or other search engines, and it's going to try to answer the question to their search in the first paragraph. It's not a perfect science, but studies have shown that when you answer the question in the first paragraph of a blog post or an article, that Google likes that, and that will help with search engine ranking. So I tend to use the search engine intro. And then, do we want to frequently ask questions? So one of the real benefits of ZimmWriter is its ability to pull all of this together in a very simple fashion. And I do want to have FAQs, and I'm going to just do short answers. In this case, I could do long. If I want, I can enable, oops, scrolled too fast there. I can enable mid-journey prompts to come up for each of those sections, so that as I'm going down, it'll literally give me a mid-journey prompt. I don't tend to put a ton of images in my blog posts. While it's a good idea to do so, I simply don't want to take the time, candidly. And so I do create a featured image, but I don't necessarily add them for each H2. I do like key takeaways, and what's going to happen here is once the article's done, ZimmWriter is going to go back, compile that entire article, and then it's going to create a key takeaways section. Why is this important? Well, this is hugely helpful for the reader. When they load up that blog post, one of the first things they get presented with are the key takeaways. Two things happen. One, most people that are interested in that article, makes sense because they've clicked on it, will take a couple seconds to read those key takeaways and determine, do I want to read the rest of the article? Oftentimes that takes about 30 seconds, and that improves your time on page, because without a key takeaway section, a lot of times users are presented with a big page full of text, and that's not as enticing and definitely can encourage people to move on, which we don't want to happen. By default, ZimmWriter uses something called skinny paragraphs. This is to aid in readability. If you don't like that for any reason, or you're writing to an audience who is going to be annoyed about skinny paragraphs, then go ahead and turn this off. I leave it on in most cases because it does improve readability, but you can turn that off if you want. Then we have the ability to disable active voice, which is by default how ZimmWriter is going to be creating this, and we can disable the conclusion. I like having the conclusion, so we're going to go ahead and leave that in there. Then I've got some other things I can choose. Do I want to have a featured image generated for me? So in this case, as long as I'm connected to one of these, I can pick any one of these models. Notice we've got Stable Diffusion, we've got Dolly, you've got Pexels, which would be a stock photo at that point. You've got Flux, different models, Recraft, and even Ideogram in here. So lots of different options. If you want, it's a great way to do it and just automatically have that provided. I don't know if I have this actually set up, but I'm going to go ahead and grab Flux Pro Realism here, and let's just go ahead and see what it generates for us if I have that set up. I can do the same for subheading information. Do I want every H2 or every other? Again, I don't tend to use these due to time, but it is a good practice, and I would encourage you if you have the time to do that. And then what model do I want to use for those subheading images? I can set that up there. I can also link ZimmWriter into my WordPress website directly, so it'll actually publish or put this blog post on my website as a draft for me to review. I like to review them manually, so I don't do that, and we actually have a sub process that we run afterwards using Claude to go ahead and proofread these, and I'll show you that. I show you that process, but I don't link directly to my website. But that is an option if you want. You can also create a link pack, which is really cool. If you have a series of links that you want to share regularly within your blog posts, maybe to sales pages or lead funnels or anything like that, you can go ahead and set up a link pack in the options setting. I'll show that on another video. And then you can pick that link pack here, and as it's creating the article, it will look at those links and try to find ways to insert them into the blog post. We can also set up what is called a mimic, which teaches the model how to write like us. And again, I'll show that in a separate video. We can also set up custom prompts, and we can even turn on YouTube videos, which means as it's writing this article, it'll go search YouTube and find videos that relate to this topic. So I'm writing about chain of prompting. It might find other videos out there about chain of prompts and include that in my blog post. Now, I'm not going to do that because I want them to see me as that expert in this case, but oftentimes that makes sense to include a YouTube video, and again, that greatly increases your time on page, which is a great thing. Audience personality. If you happen to know your audience personality well, you're welcome to pick it here, and this will change the way that ZimmWriter ultimately writes. In my case, I'm going to leave this off, but if you want, you can look up the 12 brand archetypes right here. You can simply Google that and it'll give you that information on what each of these stand for. And if your audience matches one of these, I do recommend you use it. Write in the style of. So this, if you wanted, for example, I could have it write in the style of Al Capone or Russell Brunson or any other person, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln that I might want. So if you have a particular style that you want to write in, you can do that. I often just choose auto style. And the reason I like auto style means that ZimmWriter is going to use ChatGPT or Claude to go in and determine who would be the best expert to write this article. And by doing so, that's the voice and style that they're going to have write that. And I generally like the way that works out. So we're going to just have it use auto style. I can use other languages other than English if that's interesting. I know some of you have asked about other languages, and this supports, I believe, 47 or more languages. So you can do that if you want. It is in beta, but definitely something you could try. And then what AI model to use for translation. Some models are better than others. So it's going to write in English first, by the way. That's how AI operates. And then it's going to translate from English into Spanish or Danish or whatever language you may be interested in. Then it's going to ask us about keywords. We don't have to do anything here at all, but if we want to, we can choose how many keywords do we want it to put in per H2 section. And I generally go 3. You can go wherever you want on here. It's personal preference. And then I use often automatic keywords. Basically, AI is going to identify what are the keywords we should be including in an article like this in order to rank. If you have manual keywords, you can just paste them in here. It is an either or. You can't do automatic and manual. But if you have keywords you want included, you can paste them in there, and it's super simple. And then we're going to go ahead and create this. So we're going to start our SEO writer with no scraping. Again, this model is the easy way to do it, and I'll show you in other videos how we can enable scraping. So we're going to go ahead and start with no scraping, and it's going to go ahead and get started here. It's going to make sure that if there's any issues, it's there. This is just a scrape owl error, which I don't have set up, but I'm not going ahead and using it, so that's not a problem. And we'll just disable it here. And we should be able to go ahead and get that going again. Looks like, okay, you saw I selected Flux. I don't have that set up. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off because it's identifying that, oops, hey Jonathan, you said to use Flux, but you don't have that set up. So we'll go ahead and disable that here a minute. If I can remember where that was. It already did. It disabled it for me, so that's good. So that featured image is taken care of. I won't run into that problem. And let's go ahead and try it one more time. And there we go. Now all the errors have been passed. It's checked and made sure we're good. And it's going to go ahead and write this article. This article, depending on server loads and everything else, is going to take about 3 to 10 minutes to write. And I will be back with you as soon as it's done and show you what we get. All right, and we have our ZimmWriter article. When it's done, you can see I have it set to, there's lots of settings, by the way. We'll go through the options menu later, but it gives me my article. Everything is written in Markdown, so if you're wondering where are these symbols and everything coming from, that's all coming from Markdown, and it has created a text file on my computer that has all this. But let me just show you the information that I include and why I do it. You do not have to include this, I just like it. So it gives me on the instructions, it says what the file was here in the format. One of the things I love is to see cost. So I used the Claude 3.5 Sonnet model. No, I did not. I'm sorry. You know, I used GPT 4.0. So it used the 4.0 mini model for what it calls easy tasks, things that it didn't need a lot of smarts for. It uses that because it's much cheaper, and I've set that up in the settings. Again, I'll go through options later. And my estimate cost on this was 13 cents. So it created a 1,757 word article for 13 cents. Not too bad. Again, as a reminder, you're paying for ZimmWriter as software, and then you pay the API costs based on usage. In this case, it had 74 calls, so that's like 74 prompts. So when you're going, well, why do I use ZimmWriter versus just using ChatGPT 4.0? I could do that. You could, but what I did there was equivalent to 74 prompts. If I did that on myself, it's going to take a lot longer than the few minutes that ZimmWriter took to do that, and we ended up with a great process. It gives me my settings. It does even give me a prompt that I can use from Midjourney. Again, that's a setting, so I've got my prompt I can use for my featured image. Gives me my keywords, all the things it's picked, tells me all that, and then literally pops into my article. And let me just show you what that article looks like. So here's everything in text format. You may go, Jonathan, that's not very helpful. I really want it in a format I can use. Well, if you are using WordPress, you can do that directly. If not, let's go ahead and let's just bring this into Google real quick. And let's go ahead and go into my drive. I'll upload this image real quick. I have it set up to put everything in an output folder. So here I can see, and then you can see with other things, there's my process. I'm just going to drag it into Google real quick. It's going to go ahead and upload that super fast. It's a small file. And then I'm going to open it. So in Google Drive, when I go to open it, it comes up as a text file and says, what do I want? How do I want to do this? And I want to just go ahead and convert it to a Google Doc. So I'm going to click on Google Docs, and now it's going to do all of my formatting for me and get that in order. And you'll see here in just a moment that we're going to end up with a nice, easy to read Google Doc that we can use. So we'll scroll down. The article actually begins. No, it didn't bring it. Oh, I know. I forgot a step. Bad me. Let's copy everything. First, we need to go ahead and I need to go to markdown to html.com. There are other sites that do this. This is the one I prefer. Go ahead and paste that in. Now I've got my HTML over here. I can now go back in and paste this in real quick here. Now again, if I'm using WordPress, it'll automatically read that markdown format. But if I'm using Google, that's the easy way to do it. And you can see my article starts right here. So the power of using chain of prompt processes with AI. And then it literally creates my article. You can see my key takeaway section right after the introduction. Then it goes down and breaks things out. Now remember, I use the medium section for length, so this is giving you perspective. Understanding chain of prompts, it starts by explaining what that is, the benefits of sequential prompting. It then brings a table in. Again, in WordPress, this would look really nice. In Google, it looks okay. Then enhancing AI precision and how chain of prompting and sequential prompting benefits that. Some real world applications, overcoming challenges, best practices, future opportunities, and then one of my favorite sections, the frequently asked questions. Reminder, I did the short answers. That's generally a few sentences, as you can see here, but it does this like, how does prompt chaining compare to traditional AI-based problem? And what are the ethical considerations of using prompt chaining and all that? And so really simple stuff, and then it ends with a conclusion. I tend to end this with final thoughts just because I don't like the word conclusions, knowing that a lot of people use that all the time. So I'll change that. And now this is literally ready to be proofread. And then once it's proofed, we'll go ahead and post it to the blog. I'll show you how we proofread these in a minute, but this will give you that initial walkthrough on how to use the SEO writer in ZimmWriter.